What's up, everybody? We are going to try to tackle on this episode of Trending in the AM, the Phillies, Andrew Painter, some other side things, the Eagles, free agency, Jason Kelsey, Jake Elliott, the Sixers, Portland, in South Philly tonight. Matisse is back in town. Something's brewing with the Flyers. We're going to try to tackle it all today on Trending in the AM, and we start in 30 seconds.
Gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM, right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill as every single day. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. Do me that favor, head over to the DSM Media YouTube page, hit the like, the subscribe button. Turn those notifications on. It's the best place to get your comments in, your thoughts, questions, concerns, as we are going to try to cover all four major Philly sports teams today. But a special shout out. Good morning. This show is dedicated to one of our most loyal supporters of this show, my man Big Ed. I know you had a rough day yesterday. This show goes out to you. Whatever you want to talk about, we will get it in. But I'm trying my best to cover all four major teams today, and I am going to dedicate this show to you, Ed. Love you, buddy. Good morning, Mitch. Good morning, Libby. Good morning, Adam. Everybody checking in right away. We got lots to talk about. I am Phil Thybulle. I've got Jason Voorhees sitting in here next to me today. Good morning, Jason. How are you?
Good morning, sir. I'm doing well.
Yeah, you're feeling a little bit better. You look a little bit better. It's good to know that you're feeling better, my man.
Absolutely, man. And
all right,
I'm excited about baseball, and I'm glad that we're starting off.
Yeah, I'm excited. You know, it's kind of hard with spring training. It's such a long, spring training is a long time. It takes a long time to get through it. We get really excited the first couple of days, and it kind of tapers off a little bit. You got the World Baseball Classic, so some of our guys aren't in camp right now. So it's kind of hard. But I want to start with the Phillies, and I want to start with potentially a very, how do I say it, sticky subject, tough subject, because I kind of have to say I'm right, because there's a little issue with this little unknown prospect of the Phillies, known as Andrew Painter, that after his last start felt a little something in the arm. And all this time, Jason, I've been saying, guys, we got to slow the roll on Andrew Painter. We don't want to rush him. And here we are, him throwing 99 miles an hour in his first spring start, and now he's out. And Jason, I want to start with the part of the part of it all that this was like 6 days ago, and we still don't have any information from the Phillies front office. They're dead silent on the Andrew Painter front. To you, Jason, before we even talk about Andrew Painter himself, are you concerned that the Phillies are so vague on this situation right now? They haven't said he's okay. They haven't said nothing. They haven't said anything. It's almost like you get a next question. If you ask somebody about Andrew Painter, they just say, I plead the fifth. Like, to me, that's concerning that they're not addressing it whatsoever now for about a week.
I mean, listen, you can look at it one of two ways. Either A, they are hiding something and they already know, but I think it's I think it's the opposite. I think that they're trying to be overly cautious about this thing, and rightfully so. I'm actually happy that they are doing that. Listen, Andrew Painter is represented by Scott Boras, and Scott Boras is one of we all know he's one of, if not the most influential agents in Major League Baseball. Obviously he has other sports too, but baseball's his main thing. That's where Scott Boras did I don't know if it was a study, but he had some kind of thing where he kind of went and researched young pitchers that started young in their careers, and then how their careers ended after hitting that age of 30. And like he brought this up in an interview about 2 weeks ago about Andrew Painter. So I would be hard pressed to believe that this is not Scott Boras behind this, telling the Phillies, like, yo, you guys need to, be careful with this, not, and be cautious. Like, because at the end of the day, he does have a lot of influence. Now, should they come out and just say, well, he's okay, but we're just being caught? Teams just don't do that today. Like, I know we as fans, we want everything.
We want that instant answer right away. And I will say this, Jason, I did read a report. This is not a confirmed report. This is just somebody that says they have a connection. I don't even remember who tweeted it out, that the doctor that they want to review the MRI, they wanted a second or a third opinion on the MRI, and the doctor they want was at the NFL Combine, which just wrapped up like 2 days ago. So they were waiting for him to get back from the Combine to go over these reports for that second or third opinion. So again, maybe they're just being overly cautious before they don't want to like say, oh, he needs Tommy John surgery. Then 5 days later say, well, no, actually he doesn't. You know what I mean? Maybe they're just doing all their due diligence here, but it's got to be concerning to you if a 19-year-old already has to worry about this.
Yes and no, Phil. It's because see here we go again. Like it's concerning, but it's the reality of baseball. I mean, how many pitchers go through Tommy John surgery and then they're better afterwards? The surgery actually helps a lot of pitchers. Like, so to be honest with you, I'm not. Listen, nobody wants anybody to have surgery, and nobody wants their top prospect to say, "Oh my God, he needs surgery." But so many have, and then have went on to have great careers. Steven Strasburg, early in his career, they threw him hard, and then he ended up having Tommy John surgery. He had his best season the year after he came back from Tommy John. So I'm not saying that it's like.
Nope. Jason is saying he wants Andrew Painter. Everybody, mark it down. Minute 7. Jason Voorhees just said he wants Andrew Painter to have Tommy John surgery.
I'm just saying that I'm a realist, and I believe that a lot of times there's a good chance that he might have to sometime in his career. Seeing the type of pitcher that he is, he's such a big guy. I mean, he's 6'8" almost. The guy's throwing 99 to 100. Right. I mean, that does a number on. Listen, I think they're just. In my own opinion, and this is just me, obviously you have your own opinion, but I believe that they are being just overly cautious, and I'm happy about that. And you know what, Phil? Phil, I want to toot your horn because you were right, and you were pounding the drum early about it, and there was a lot of people. I know people take you the wrong way sometimes because you have your own takes, but for real. The thing is,
from the way you phrased it,
you want to be careful about these guys because there's really no reason to rush. He's 19 years old.
And that's what I was going to say. Do you think that them dragging this out a little bit is just their way of kind of setting up? Like, I'm a conspiracy theorist. They want to slow down Andrew Painter. The fan base wants Andrew Painter as opening day starter, hypothetically speaking. So they're just dragging this out to kind of look. He had a little fatigue. He's young. We're going to use this. You're going to see him in July. Like, they're just using this as an excuse to do what they really wanted to do, which was just slow him down a little bit. You know what I mean? To kind of stretch it so that they don't have to force him, because you look at it, and it's a completely different situation and scenario, but the fan base begged and screamed and pounded the table. We need Scott Kingery up right now. So they give Scott Kingery an extension. He gets called up, and he becomes a complete and total, bust. Because they rushed it a little bit. Different scenario, but now if the fan base is begging for Painter, this way now they can kind of just stretch it out a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, the fans are going to get Painter, and Painter is going to be great. He will.
Right.
But you're right. You don't have to rush it. You don't.
And the thing is, you don't have to because you still have Zach Wheeler. You still have Aaron Nola.
You have a good team. Exactly. You already have a contending team. So it's actually probably the best situation for him to be in, that you can go here. You could start the season with Bailey Falter, who, by the way, Bailey Falter, I know I'm always making fun of you, but Bailey Falter is actually not a bad option for a number 5.
Falter pitched to a sub ERA last year.
Exactly. So I'm okay with Bailey Falter.
If you get a 3.86 ERA out of your number 5 starter, you're going to win 100 games. You know what I mean? That's how rare that is. So Bailey Falter has pitched pretty solidly so far in spring. I mean, I just don't understand. Look, I get it. If you're ready, you're ready. You pitch now. But here's and this just popped into my head. literally 3 seconds ago, so I don't even know if this makes sense. But I'm thinking about a guy by the name of David Price, pretty damn good pitcher throughout his career, right? What did he do his rookie year? Which was 2008, which was the year where the Tampa Bay faced the Phillies in the World Series. What was David Price pitching as in that year?
He was a reliever.
He was, because they had this 21-year-old kid that was lights out. They had only limited innings. They wanted to stretch him out. And guess what? They used him out of the bullpen to kind of just get him that taste of experience. He wasn't pitching as a closer. He was pitching the 6th inning, a long reliever, 2 innings at a time, whatever was needed. Now, Madden was a coach that, he coached by a weird way, like an analytic way that we weren't used to in 08. But they were able to get him that big league experience, but not overwork him. And I mean, I know he struggled at the end of his career, David Price, but he had a pretty damn long career. And he made multiple All-Star games. I don't know if he ever won a Cy Young or not. I know he contended for a Cy Young a few times. He had a very long, successful career, David Price. So I'm not suggesting they should use him in the bullpen, but I'm saying you don't need to throw a 19-year-old kid 200 innings. So let's just slow it down, especially when you have the luxury of having a Bailey Falter there that can pitch well.
I agree 100%. I do. I think they also, like I said, they have Bailey Falter, the guy, Plasmir. Apparently, they got him in a trade last year from the Giants. He's been pitching very well in spring. So he's another guy. So they have options. They're not like, they don't have to rush Andrew Painter. And nor do I ever think they wanted to. I just think that they felt he was telling them that he's ready. Of course he's going to say he's ready. But, the guy's a phenom. But listen, I think this is actually – there's no need to – it's a blessing in disguise that this has happened, because I think you're right. It's kind of forcing them to kind of wait as opposed to like doing –
You mentioned Plasmeyer. I want to mention the Marte. I can't say his first name. I just looked it up to Junior Marte. We got him from the Giants too. And, we are so deep in the bullpen this year that guys that would have been in like the 6th, 7th inning last year might not even make the club this year, because that's how deep we are out of the bullpen. And I was listening to I listened to like a half an inning of the game yesterday, and it just happened to be when they were interviewing Craig Kimball, and he just was talking about how they were asking him, does he really want that 400 save plateau? He's like, look, this bullpen is so deep and so good that we're just all here with the same goal to get back to the World Series and win. This bullpen, this pitching staff, this team is so laser focused that it's deep, and there's so much youth, there's so much experience, both ends of the spectrum. When it comes down to it, Andrew Painter, you can be patient with.
I agree.
All right, I have another Phillies thing that I saw somebody, I forget which Phillies reporter or writer that I was reading, that put this out there, and we could talk about all the different guys that are playing well so far. And look, it's spring training. Spring training is spring training. You take it with a grain of salt, right? Do you agree with that?
Yes and no. I think
right.
There's good and bad to take from spring training, I think, on all levels. Yeah, right. I agree. For the most part, yes, it's spring training.
It's spring training. So what I saw and somebody wrote was, what if Edmundo Sosa is actually a really good hitter? Because right now he leads the team in home runs. Now, he's not going to be a power hitter per se. He's hitting 500 in 7 games so far in spring. I know everybody wants to talk about Alec Boehm and how he looks, but what if Edmundo Sosa, okay, so Cease is saying that he won the Cy Young in 2012. Yeah, exactly. 4 years after he came up. So that's good pull there. Thank you for that information, Adam. What if Sosa is actually not just a defensive replacement glove and actually a really good hitter? What that can actually do to this team, because you've got Stott, who is struggling in spring so far. He's not hitting the ball very well. You've got Boehm. You've got Turner. You got Hoskins. You've got maybe Marsh, because I know they were talking about Sosa in center field or getting reps just to learn. What it does to the team if Edmundo Sosa is actually a really good hitter, and that Dave Dombrowski kind of lucked into bringing a guy in for some defensive help from the Cardinals last year, and he just couldn't get on the field last year with the Cardinals because there was no spots for him. Now there is no spots here for him, but if he's really good, you might have a plethora of guys in the infield. And does that make one of them expendable? And if one of them's expendable, who is the expendable person to get Sosa on the field regularly?
I mean, listen, it gives you options. I always say that I've followed Dave Dombrowski for his entire career, and he's a genius when it comes to making those deadline moves that kind of get guys that, kind of come in and they're able to, insert into a weakness that the team has. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if down the line you come trade time. I mean, they look at, to move somebody. I'm not going to say the name that I know a lot of people want to hear, because there's a lot of people that are haters and they would say, "Oh, Rhys Hoskins."
Right.
But I'm
saying that, and Big Ed is saying Rhys Hoskins right off the. It's like you guys were reading each other's minds there.
But he would probably be the guy that fans would want,
I would. I wouldn't, because I'm a Rhys guy. But
listen, let's see how the season plays out. I mean, I think Edmundo Sosa, you don't necessarily even want to trade. It's good to have guys like that, because teams need people like that. That he was actually instrumental last year in helping them get to a World Series. I mean, his defense alone, to me, is
problem to me comes, Jason, if he's a really good hitter. You don't want Stott platooning. You don't want Bone platooning. You don't want Marsh platooning, because you don't want guys platooning, because then they can't get in a rhythm. You want Stott out there every day.
Well,
you want Bone out there every day. So what do you do with them then?
I don't think that I've watched Rob Thompson. I think overall he's been pretty good as far as letting these guys play. I mean, he let Stott play all that.
And that's the problem. If Sosa's really good, then you have that extra bench piece, and if somebody gets hurt or something like that, you've got that option. I mean, last year, how bad did we get when? I mean, can you imagine that Didi Gregorius had like 250 at bats on this team last year? Camargo had like 200 at bats on this team. You didn't have the depth behind those guys when they struggled or got hurt. You've got that now.
I don't like
problem is also that if Stott struggles, then you might pull the trigger quicker because you have Sosa, and that might be detrimental to Bryson Stott.
Yeah, but not necessarily. See, this is the other thing. Like, you got to let these guys play. But if Stott is like, if we're at mid-season and Stott is like batting 100, dude, then you got to send him down. You
right, obviously. That's an extreme. I'm saying, what if at the end of April he's hitting 150?
Well, then maybe you do start. I don't necessarily want to say a platoon, but maybe you start giving Sosa more playing time, because you can't just have this focus of like, well, we're going to let some guy play and let him run him into the ground. Like, if he's struggling. Baseball is a lot about confidence, and we've talked about this. We talk about guys that are like streaky hitters, and the Phillies are extremely built on streaks. They have a ton of guys that kind of get hot and then get cold, and when you have guys that aren't balanced, you have to let them play. But to the opposite effect, if you let Bryson Stott continue to play and his confidence is just wavering, and you see it, you have to pull the trigger. That's why I was complaining last year about Castellanos. I like and I admire Rob Thompson's patience, but there was a point in time where I would have either moved him to the 8th or 9th spot in the lineup, or I would have started benching him. Because if he's not getting it after 3 weeks of being in this funk, then you got to make a drastic measure. I always say shock the system. When these guys are like in a rhythm, and it's a bad rhythm, then shock it. Give them off for 2 days.
Give them like clear. The other thing I was going to say with the Sosa situation, and another guy that I know, he's hit a couple home runs. I know a lot of fans like him because Sosa might lead the team in home runs in spring, but he's not a power hitter. He's not gonna lead the team in home runs. He's not gonna hit 25 home runs. But everybody's hyped on Derek Hall, who has 3 home runs. I would almost prefer Sosa in the lineup every day, because you need a DH, till Bryce Harper comes back, which Bryce Harper reported this week. They're still taking the slow wait and see approach with him. They're still talking about All-Star break, probable or potential for Harper's return. I would rather Sosa play almost every day. okay, and give Bohm a DH day, then give Stott a DH day, then give Hoskins a DH day, then give Nick Castellanos a DH day, then Derek Hall just being the 4 out of 6 days the DH because he's the power hitter. Just because you're a power hitter doesn't mean you have to be the DH. So I would almost prefer just Derek Hall being that power guy off the bench for a pinch hit home run opportunity. Yeah, you get him a start here or there, but Sosa, let's see what we have with Sosa because of his youth, his flexibility around the field. Get him on the field, and then let these other guys just DH once a week so that you're getting the best of both worlds.
I mean, you're spot on. You have utility guys around the league that play every day. I mean, the guy I believe he was on the Minnesota Twins, Luis Ariz. He led the American League last year in batting. He was hitting over 320. I believe he was traded at the end of the season to the Marlins. He's now on the Marlins, but he's a utility guy that hits 300. He doesn't hit a lot of home runs, but he plays almost every day. He'll play second base one day, and it's exactly what you just said. The guys that he's playing for, either DH or somebody else DHs. And I agree. Listen, Derek Hall, yeah, he's a nice guy to have on your team, but I don't think he should be an everyday player.
People overreact. Like it's crazy. People overreact to the power hitter versus the regular hitter just because people like home runs. Everybody loves a home run. Who doesn't love a good home run, a good upper decker, an oppo boppo, whatever it may be.
But the ladies love Sosa, so
do they?
That's what I hear.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's what you hear. The ladies think Rob Thompson's the sexiest manager in baseball too. So I don't know what people are thinking there.
I mean, hey, I guess everybody has their thing, right?
Everybody has their thing. All right, we're going to transition off Phillies. We're going to keep talking Phillies. I mean, spring training. I was having a conversation with somebody last night, privately off the air, and we were trying to plan something. I'm like, oh, when's Phillies opening day? And do you realize it's like 3 weeks away?
30th?
Yeah, it's less than 3 weeks away to opening day. So we're going to continue this Phillies talk, a lot in the coming weeks. I'm going to try to get some guests on here to talk it, but opening day's around the corner. Have you watched any of the World Baseball Classic? Because I haven't.
I haven't, but I will. As a matter of fact, if it's on tonight, I'll watch it.
Okay, yeah, I'm not I thought the World Baseball Classic, in theory, was going to be a good thing for the sport. For some reason, I just lost interest in it after the first one or two World Baseball Classics, and honestly, I don't want my players getting hurt and playing in it. So
I'll tell you what, the National League lineup is sick.
Yeah, I know. I made a joke. Everyone thought I was serious. I made a joke. How disrespectful! Trey Turner and JT Realmuto in the bottom of the lineup. It was just a joke.
You have Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, and Realmuto in the lineup on certain days, and you have two Mets. You have Alonso and McNeil. It's like, and two Cardinals, Arenado and Goldschmidt. So it's almost like three teams make up the whole United States starting lineup.
Yeah. All right, so let's transition to the Eagles for a little bit here because I'm trying. We spent about 4 minutes more than I wanted on the Phillies there, so now I got to rush through something here. But I want to get to the Eagles. Breaking news about an hour ago: Jake Elliott's contract has been restructured, which I told you all that. Yes, everybody's talking about Darius Slay and Lane Johnson getting their deals restructured. I've said it multiple times on the show. Jake Elliott would get restructured too because he was a $6 million cap hit. They just saved $2.5 million on the cap by restructuring his deal. We keep one of the best kickers in football, and we save some money. And this just is proof, guys, that I've been talking about all week, the overreaction to NFL free agency from the Eagles, because Howie Roseman is not locking up or franchise tagging Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Relax. Howie Roseman has been working. And I said it yesterday, I believe, on the show, maybe 2 days ago. On March 10th, last year, we did not have a Super Bowl roster. On March 30th last year, we did not have a Super Bowl roster. Patience. Relax. No overreaction. The Jake Elliott situation is just step one of what's going to be a very long, drawn-out process of, again, reshaping this roster so that we're in the best possible spot to make another run towards a Super Bowl. Right, Jason?
I mean, I think, and I'm going to say we, because I'm going to preface this by saying that we all, as Eagles fans, are guilty of it. It's that instant gratification.
Okay.
It's the expectations that we set, and unrealistic expectations, should I say, unrealistic, being Eagles want Howie Roseman to sign. Eagles fans want Howie Roseman to sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Gray. They want everybody coming back. They want to run it back.
They want a baseball no salary cap situation happening
in a salary cap world. Exactly.
In a salary cap world. Yeah.
You got to realize, like, if Howie Roseman sits there and he looks at the roster and he says, "Okay, I have X amount of guys." I know, and if anybody knows the markets at this point, Howie Roseman's probably one of the best at reading markets. So he already knows what Gardner-Johnson's going to command. If he knows in his mind that he can't meet that, he's going to move on already. He may have already moved on. And people don't want to hear that.
Jason, I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson wasn't even an Eagle till mid-August last year. We traded like next to nothing to bring him in here. And let's be honest. I would say 50% of NFL or 50% of Eagles fans, when the trade went down, like the hour before that trade happened, didn't even know who Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was. He was just a slot corner on the New Orleans Saints that wanted to transition to safety. And I remember doing the show saying, I don't know if you commit to a guy that's never played a position. So, I mean, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson played really well last year. I love his personality. He fits with the Eagles fan base and the team. But if you got to move on, there's 100 other people out there that could do the job that he did.
And that's my point. Howie Roseman, if we would cream this guy if he was one of those GMs that got locked into a player and then worried only about said player and then lost out on him anyway and then didn't have a plan. Howie Roseman has shown a propensity to be able to have that plan, and he knows already.
And he has a backup plan, proven by the point that the story that came out this past week was that actually Allen Robinson, not A.J. Brown, was his top target as another wide receiver. He had a deal in place for Allen Robinson. It fell through. He had a backup plan. He's lucky that the backup plan.
Thank God.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, let's be honest. I know Allen Robinson had a god-awful season last year with the Rams, but also the Rams stunk ass last year, and everybody was hurt on that team. I'm not saying Allen Robinson would have been A.J. Brown on this team, but he wouldn't have been as bad as he was on the Rams if he was on this team.
Yeah, but we still got the better guy.
Absolutely.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah, only 8 teams have repeated. I get that. I get that. But it doesn't mean, Ed, that if you look at this NFC, Howie Roseman is going to have a lot of turnover on this Eagles team, but they're still going to be the favorite or one of the 2 favorites to repeat or to get back to the Super Bowl. They're definitely, if they lose everybody, they're still going to be the favorite to win the NFC East the NFC East because they still have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, the best offensive line in football.
Phil, what do we always say, and I know you say it more than I, but we always kind of say it together. What does Howie Roseman value the most? The trenches.
Yeah.
Offensive and defensive line. So if you looked at these free agents and you said to yourself, oh, C.J. Gardner-Johnson should be the number 1 guy we bring back, then you don't know Howie Roseman. Because in Howie Roseman's mind, I could tell you right now that I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think Javon Hargrave is the guy that he's definitely locked in on. And
it's going to be tough to bring back. If they don't get him, there's the guy from Washington, there's the guy from the Colts. There's 2 other guys like right on that Javon Hargrave level. If he's going to spend $20 million on a player, it's going to be on that interior line. You talk about the trenches, and it makes me think of transitioning to the other side on the trenches. And Joe the Gigolo, put out an asinine tweet, okay, saying that Jason Kelce should retire, and it would be the best thing for this Eagles organization. And that's an asinine thing because Jason Kelce's still playing at a top 2 center in the league level at this point, which is insane to think. So I don't want to address that part, like the asinine part of the tweet, Jason, but I do want to address the fact that I think Jason Kelce needs to make his decision now. One where I want Jason Kelce back. I know we have Cam Jurgens, but I want Jason Kelce back. But if he's not back, we have Cam Jurgens there. But I think Howie Roseman needs an answer Because is he going to slide Cam Jurgens into Isaac Seumalo's spot? Or does he got to bring back Andre Dillard? Because we're losing Isaac Seumalo. We're not going to be able to afford the contract that he's going to get on the free agent market. Do we need to address the guards position? Do we have Cam Jurgens to put there? Do you bring back Andre Dillard, who has learned how to play guard? Do you slide Jack Driscoll over there, which is where he was drafted to play? Howie Roseman needs to know an answer from Jason Kelce as soon as possible so the rest of the dominoes can fall.
I mean, I believe he already has an answer. I believe Kelce's probably already.
You think he's already told Howie?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think he's coming back.
How you think he's coming back? I was going to say, do you think he is coming back?
Yeah, I already think he's coming back. I think obviously he it was probably a lot to think about because you know he's got a family here. He's very plugged into the city. But I think the way that he played last year, there's no way he's going to go out with like that. I think he wants a Super Bowl, and I'd be hard pressed to believe that he's going to retire in this season.
I mean, is there a scenario in your head? Because I saw a couple people putting out there that if he wants to come back, but Howie has to make. I mean, let's be honest. Howie does have tough decisions to make. You can't pay everybody. He's obviously trying to bring back. The rumors are Brandon Graham's going to come back. You know what I mean? Which is a good thing. Legends in this city, you can't let them all walk, but you also can't bring every legend back at the end of their career because then you get stuck in a Phillies situation where you got all these guys that are past their prime, get paid big money. Some people were hinting that there'll be a big, just making numbers up here. Say Howie can pay Kelce $5 million, but there'll be 3 or 4 teams that are willing to pay Jason Kelce $10 million. I don't believe in taking discounts per se, but do you think Jason Kelce's the type of guy and he loves the city so much that whatever Howie and him can negotiate, they'll figure it out? It's either retire or stay an Eagle. It's not go elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to go anywhere else. I don't think having a guy like that, I don't think he could bring it upon himself to do that. I think he's like a Philly guy, since he got here. I mean, I don't know if you heard the interview with Howie Roseman. He was on Jason Kelce's podcast, and which is pretty funny. He brought his boss on the podcast. Yeah. Actually pretty cool too. But
I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he interviewed Howie, and they were, he basically asked him how did you go about drafting me? And there was this really cool story that Howie brought up about this guy, something Mudd. I guess he used to be in the Eagles organization.
Yeah, he was one of the
told Howie Roseman that you better draft this guy, and you better draft him high. He told him the draft position to draft him and everything, and Eagles ended up drafting him 2 rounds later, which Kelce was laughing. He's like, "Why did you draft me later?" But then Howie Roseman basically said that this guy Mudd went on to say that he's going to be your captain of your team, he's going to win you a Super Bowl, and he's going to be your best player. And it's almost prophetic at this point, because it's you look at it now and it's oh my God, Jason Kelce was their captain. He was one of their best players, and they did win a Super Bowl. So
I want to address Joe's question here. The free agent trade part, I don't know yet, but the first round picks is what I want to address here first, or talk about for a minute. I see that first pick if they take it. So if they use their 10th pick, it's going. I mean, everybody wants that cornerback. I believe he played for Oregon. Everybody wants that cornerback. Witherspoon, yeah. I want to say Weatherspoon, but Witherspoon, yeah. That's what everybody assumes. We haven't drafted a first-round cornerback since Lito Shepherd, and that wasn't in the top 10. Again, what do we talk about on the show, Jason, all the time? Howie Roseman is not in the second year. There is a track record of a decade of information to pull from. He does not draft. He only drafts certain positions early. So if he's going to draft the first-round cornerback, it might be with the 30th pick. He might trade back. But if he picks at 10, it's going to be defensive line. It's going to be offensive line, I don't know why he would, but it would be wide receiver. That is what he uses those top 10, 12 picks on, not cornerbacks. Maybe how free agency goes, maybe something changes, but I'd be highly suspect that he drafts a cornerback at number 10. And I will say this again, I've said this once or twice, do not be surprised if he trades back, and do not be surprised if we only draft 1 first-round pick. Because, again, salary cap implications are in play. The 10th and the 30th pick, draft picks get slotted. You're automatically accounting against the cap for an X amount of money depending on where you're picked. You're up against the cap. If they give out big deals to any of these other guys, you can't afford the 10th and the 30th pick. So they might try to move the 30th into another round, pick up a future pick or two, maybe take 10, move it back to 15. It actually saves them a lot of money on the salary cap, but it's not going to be that cornerback at 10. And they're definitely not drafting that running back by Bijan Robinson with the 30th pick. Howie will never waste a first-round pick on a running back. I don't know if you agree with either of those statements.
I agree with the first statement, not the second. I think there is a chance that they draft that running back. This kid is special, and
right. If they're not willing to pay running backs, why are they going to pay first-round dollars to a running back?
Because he's fresh out of college and he's healthy, and he's a guy that could really be a 3-down back. He's exactly what would be. He would be the perfect complement to Jalen Hurts. I'm just saying, like I'm not saying that it will, and I agree that his track record doesn't say that, but I wouldn't say there's no chance they draft a running back. If that kid's there, but I believe I do agree with your first point. I actually think they are going to trade back. I have a weird feeling, like I know Eagles fans don't want to hear that because we got a 10th pick and everybody's excited, but like I think it's that pick.
We got to cut this conversation off here. 3 minutes ago, I'm just checking on Twitter. Gianna Hahn, she's a beat reporter for the Inquirer from the Flyers. Breaking news, Jason. Are you ready to celebrate? Chuck Fletcher has been let go.
Goodbye.
Danny Briere is taking over as the interim GM.
Who is?
Danny Briere.
Great.
Chuck Fletcher, breaking news live on the – hold on. This is why we have banners for Flyers stuff here. What's up with the Flyers? Breaking news 4 minutes ago. Chuck Fletcher. Adios, amigos.
Goodbye. Good riddance. You ruined this team.
The cry of the fans. So I was going to bring up something about the Flyers, that there was rumors going around that there's going to be a rally this weekend somewhere in Philadelphia of a rally to the fan base to try to force Comcast to sell the Flyers, which obviously something like that is almost asinine because a fan base rallying around to talk about the Flyers isn't good. It's just making more money and putting their name in the spotlight more. So that wouldn't actually help. But they've heard the cries of the fans. Chuck Fletcher is no longer in charge of the Philadelphia Flyers. Is that a good thing there? I think that's an obvious answer right there. But is that a good thing?
It's a great thing, Phil. I mean, listen, the guy is a buffoon. He's completely ruined this team and set them back. I mean, I even
tried to change the color logos on the bottom.
Everyone blamed Ron Hextall for kind of ruining this team. Okay, Ron Hextall might have set them back. This guy freaking set him back to infinity because he sucks. Every single move he made, he's one of the worst GMs I've ever seen in the NHL. And to be honest with you, the only reason he got the job originally was Bobby Clark. Bobby Clark still pulls strings, and so does Bill Barber, and so does all these old heads that are plugged into they never go away. They just kind of reverberate and go back and forth and go in circles, but they're always still there. They are in the head of Comcast, Dave Scott, who's MIA, by the way. The guy sucks. He's another shitty owner. Listen.
So here's his quote. So Dave Scott, chairman of Comcast Spectacor, governor of the Flyers. The Philadelphia Flyers organization has always been defined by grit, determination, and a standard of excellence. Over the past several seasons, our team simply has not lived up to that standard. So today we will begin to chart a new path forward under a new leadership structure for hockey operations. This morning, we released Chuck Fletcher from his president and general manager responsibilities. We thank him for his hard work and dedication. We wish him nothing but the best moving forward. That is the official statement.
Yeah, listen, it was
I'm so glad this happened live on the air because I know how much it makes you happy.
It was a long time coming. Listen, dude, you don't even understand. I have not even talked about the Flyers. At least now, knowing that they just fired Fletcher, it's going to reinvigorate my passion for the Flyers.
So now you have to sit down and figure out what do they have to do this? What do they have to do that?
I agree. Listen, that'll come. But I'm happy to just be able to say, you know what? They finally got it right because this guy was horrible. He was terrible at his job. I don't know how he was allowed to be here this long.
Right. Well, so here's a question for you because you're a little bit – I know you said you've kind of tapered off because of Fletcher and how they've done. But you know more about hockey than I do. But I remember reading last year, beginning like this year's off season, Danny Briere being like the assistant, the second in command there. There were a lot of rumors and talk that Danny Briere was a hot name rising through the NHL circles, that if he didn't become in charge here, some team was going to swoop in and take him. But he has been here under Chuck Fletcher now for a little bit of time. Do you just like let Danny Briere run it out this year just as the guy in charge? The trade deadline's passed already, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so he's really just here at this point. Or is Danny Briere a smart enough, different enough, fresh enough mind that he's somebody you want? Because again, just like, we hear with the NFL coaching circles, this guy's a hot coaching candidate. We've heard this about Danny Briere for a little while, that he's a hot GM candidate, president candidate. Do you think he's a guy, or do you just want, at the end of the season, completely clean slate, get everybody out of the office and just start completely fresh?
I think that is really what has to happen. See, I just see too many times and too often we fall into this as Flyers fans, like this false sense of hope that like, okay, Danny Briere, he's a young mind. But yes, what is Danny Briere? He's a former Flyer. He's a former player. He's been here under Chuck Fletcher, who sucked, by the way.
Right.
Yes, Danny Briere is smart. But if Danny Briere is going to be in any capacity, they need to still bring in a fresh set of eyes, somebody that knows how to build teams from the ground up, knows how to do a rebuild, because that's what this team really needs, and that's what they've never.
This is not going to be a Philadelphia Eagles retool and go from 4-12 to the Super Bowl 2 years later. This is going to take,
and that's the problem.
Is Sam Hinkie available? Does Sam Hinkie know anything about hockey? Can we just? No, I know it sounds sarcastic and a joke, but isn't that kind of what this team needs? To strip it completely down, bring that's almost just tank as bad as possible for 2 years, so you build up the youth of this team. And then I know that's a shame, because that means then you have to move on probably from Tortorella as well, because he's not going to stay through a complete strip down, tear down thing like that. Do you almost have to do a Sam Hinkie Sixers type process to really reorganize the organization to an extent?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts at the top, though. And the problem is, unless Comcast does sell, or unless they embrace the fact that they got to stop just trying to get people in the seats and actually get people that know what they're doing to run a hockey team, this isn't going to change. Like, you can change as many figureheads as you want. They're only figureheads. They're not making smart decisions. They're not. If you look at this team, ever since Ed Snyder passed away, it's just been a downward spiral. I mean, Ed Snyder was the one guy that you knew you could count on, because he was not going to allow this. He would not allow.
We wanted Ed Snyder out of here so bad, and now we would beg to have him back.
I mean, listen, dude, you said it yourself. You were probably more of a hockey fan than any sport at one point.
I don't realize that, because we don't talk about it on this show.
But that's because, dude, Phil, I want to be fired up as much about the Flyers as I am about the Eagles and the Phillies, because I love hockey. But
Jason, I could not name 5 guys on the Flyers team.
I grew up in the 80s, dude. We both did. We grew up watching those 90s teams with Lindros, LeClaire. They were good every single year. They might not have won the cup, but they were good every year. They were in the playoffs every single year. They were one of the best. Every year that when the reports would come out, top teams in the NHL, they'd always be in that top 5 list every single year for like 20 years straight. Mm-hmm. And now it's just been like, okay, here they'll make a playoffs like 1 year, and then 6 years later, they make the playoffs again. It's like, dude, this team has no direction. Mm-hmm. Like, I just want to be able to be excited again. And you know what? The reason that we're not excited, they just don't have good players. Like, at least during that era, they had Eric Lindros. They had John LeClaire. This team has no good players. Like, they need, unfortunately, if you look at teams that have tanked and went from being terrible to good, like teams like the Penguins, they tanked for 3 years in a row, and they got Sidney Crosby, they got the goalie, and they got Malkin. 3 years in a row with draft picks. Mm-hmm. The Flyers, every time they've had a high draft pick, there was either A, not a generational player, or they made the wrong pick. Like the year they took Nolan Patrick, there really wasn't a generational player in that draft. There wasn't a player that was even close to being elite in that draft. But they still took Nolan Patrick, and they could have had, other guys. Like, it's just every single year you look at this, and it's like, if you really want to fix a team, you have to start with the draft. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you're going to get better.
And I got to cut you off. We can't talk Flyers anymore. There's more breaking news on Twitter.
Oh, my God.
And I don't know if you could tell I changed the color again. Breaking news on Twitter about the Phillies and a picture of the Phillies.
Andrew Painter.
No, actually not. Even more bad news. Ranger Suarez breaking news has been pulled from Team Venezuela and brought back to the Phillies organization because of arm issues and a forearm injury that he has now suffered. He pitched in the World Baseball Classic exhibition game for Venezuela the other day, and he has got a forearm injury. They're not sure how serious it is, possibly minor, but he has forearm soreness and some, I forget. I already closed out the article because it pissed me off.
What the frick?
What did I tell you before when the rosters for the World Baseball Classic were announced? I said I don't want my Phillies having to ramp up so quickly to pitch in a competitive form when they're not ready to. And here we go. It might be minor. Maybe he doesn't miss much time. But when you hear the word arm and when you hear forearm soreness at this point of the season, is that good? I don't think it is. What have I talked about since day one of this World Baseball Classic? Dude, if I'm the Phillies, I'm calling everybody back. Trey Turner, come back. Garrett Stubbs, I don't care that you're playing for Team Israel. Come back. Everybody back right now in Clearwater. This is why right here. Why can't we have good things?
Dude, Ranger too. It has to happen to like one of my favorite players.
Dude,
this is bad breaking news, Phil. Why?
You just went from great breaking news to bad. Dude, I don't know why I'm searching Twitter in the middle of a show. I shouldn't, but it's good when I do because then you get this kind of breaking news here, and you get to react instantly. Look, like I said, the World Baseball Classic in theory was a good idea. It's not. It's not bringing extra eyes to the sport like they thought it would. It's not like it's growing in popularity, at least in the United States. Dude, it's time to put minor leaguers and college kids on the World Baseball Classic teams because I don't want my players playing in an exhibition game of any kind a month before a season starts when you're not fully ready to go, when you haven't been working. Dude, Ranger Suarez pitched in the World Series 800 times, bullpen, starting. He was one of the MVPs of that World Series and playoff run. More innings than he's ever put on that arm. And now he's out there trying to throw competitive innings.
Now you're screwed.
What happened? And if it's serious, if he misses a month, now you go from being okay with Andrew Painter or Bailey Falter as your fifth starter. Now all of a sudden Bailey Falter is your fourth starter. Then that means you got to go get Chris Sanchez or someone else from the minors to start in that fifth spot. Now we're all back to square one here. This is why I was so against it. You can't call Cole Hamels. I believe he signed a minor league deal with San Diego. I think. Don't quote me on that, Joe. But I think he already signed with San Diego. But if he was available, sure. I heard he was pitching pretty good in the offseason in his tryouts. So, you're going to need to go get somebody if Ranger Suarez is hurt. You are. Breaking news sucks.
Dude, you went from having I was all excited about the Flyers, and now I'm like, what the frig?
Yeah, what the frig? I think in your head you're saying something else, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, but
so that is that's some news right there. You got the Flyers breaking news. We got to talk about them. We talked Phillies. So for the final 10 minutes, I promised we'd cover all four major sports here. So we are going to talk the Sixers for the final 10 minutes. They're home in South Philly after their long 5-game road trip. And like I said the other day after the fifth game when we won the other night, that going 4-1 on that road trip, you know what? This team is better than people realize. There's a lot of down negative energy surrounding this Sixers team from the fan base. But if you realistically look at it and take a step back, this is still one of the best. They have literally beaten every good team in the NBA except for the Celtics. And they're really good. And tonight's a special night down in South Philly
Matisse.
because Mark's favorite basketball player, Matisse Thybulle, comes home. We trade him away at the deadline. He goes to Portland. He's coming home. And Jason, we're gonna talk sarcastically here. I don't know what I want. Do I want Matisse? Because Matisse, I don't know if you've heard or seen the talk, has been lights out in Portland. I mean, he's knocking down 5 of 6 3-point shots. He's scoring double digits every night. I mean, he's becoming this MVP candidate overnight in some people's eyes. I don't know if I want him to go off just to prove all those people that, said that Matisse, should be a starter and this and that right. Or do I want him to just absolutely stink and brick every shot so that I could say, see, I told you. He's not that good anyway. I don't know which way I want to go.
Well, I know you, Phil, and I know it should be the latter.
We got to switch to Sixers blue here.
It should be the latter for you, that you want to just rub it in people's faces.
No, I love being a flip flopper. I love being proven wrong. But realistically speaking, not in a sarcastic manner. I saw somebody. I think it was Keith Pompey was talking about it. It's not like he's this great player all of a sudden. He's playing on a team that's not deep, where there's 30 minutes for him to play a night. He's getting consistent playing time, and there's no expectations. This goes back to the people that say Isaiah Joe was a missed opportunity. When you're playing as a fringe player on a title contending team, it's a lot different than when you're playing on a playoff fringe team with no expectations. Teams that aren't in the playoffs. You can play with no expectations. It's kind of like Bryson Stott. Give him every day. If he fails, he fails. If he doesn't, he doesn't. There's no, there's room for it to go either way. That's the difference between Matisse Thybulle, Isaiah Joe, all these guys on other bad teams now that used to be on the Sixers. There's no expectations. There's no pressure. There's none of that. And that's what people don't understand. When you're playing in any sport with no expectations, somebody will hit somebody. If the Phillies were a 60-win team, go back to just pick a random year, 1991. Somebody led the Phillies in home runs that year. The year we traded away Charles Barkley, someone led the team in scoring for the Sixers, Jeff Malone. Who? Nobody knows who he is. Every bad team has stats, and that's what these guys are doing on their new teams, specifically Matisse Thybulle.
Yeah, but I don't think it's just about stats. I think sometimes you can look at any teams where they have young players that are, higher draft picks and guys that, had potential, where they struggle on their first team. Mm. And all of a sudden you go to a different situation and all of a sudden, it's like almost a light switch flips on. Where, where they were once, very timid and they didn't have confidence. They go to a situation where now all of a sudden they're exuding confidence and they're showing out. A lot of that's mental. That's the mental side of it. I don't think anybody ever said that Matisse Thybulle didn't have talent. He has the talent. Matisse Thybulle was just in a tough situation on a team where he wasn't one of the stars.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Because he got traded now, the expectations on the team aren't as high, so he can play looser and freer. Mental. Yeah, I mean, it's part mental, but it's also part the team.
Well, I agree with you. The talent.
Portland. Hold on. Let me pull up. The last I looked at the standings, I don't think Portland's even in the playoffs. If it would start today, no. Not only are they not in the playoffs, so the top 10 make it 11, 12. They're 13th. They're 13th in the Western Conference. So there is no expectations. I mean, they might, if they get hot, they might be able to get to the 10th spot in the play-in game, but the expectations are different. So Portland can allow him to grow, gain confidence. Whereas in Philly, there was no time for that. And that's the thing. I mean, Isaiah Joe is the other example. Everybody loves Isaiah Joe because he knocks down threes for Oklahoma City. Dude, did you guys see the game the other night? Isaiah Joe and Oklahoma City against Phoenix. Kevin Durant slips in pregame warmups. He's knocked out of the game, their best player. Isaiah Joe goes 1-9 shooting, a minus 31. But yet Isaiah Joe's this great player. But see, the thing is, Oklahoma City can see that 1-9 and let him continue to play. Because who cares if Oklahoma City makes the playoffs or not? Oklahoma City doesn't care if they make the playoffs or not. And that's the difference between expectations. Those cities, Portland, Oklahoma City, and Philadelphia. Expectations are different depending on how good your team is. The anchovies. I had to open up a fresh can of anchovies for a pizza last night, Ed. My hands smelled for 30 minutes. I hope you feel better, my man. And I hope you get some rest and get back on your feet soon, buddy. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think, to your point, take it a step further, like when he was here, not only did he have higher expectations because the team was better, he had higher expectations because he was a first-round draft pick. I mean, the guy was drafted pretty high. Now, listen, I know in basketball, a lot of times it's a crapshoot just like any other sport. Mm-hmm. A lot of times these guys get drafted and they're just not as good or as advertised. But I think it all comes down to, as you said, getting a chance. He now has the chance to play every day. He's not in a situation where he doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And that leads to better confidence. That leads to, better results on the court. And you know what? I wish him all the best because
I'm not bashing Matisse or anything. I wish him all the best too. But it's not like what you see him doing in Portland. If you retrade him back to the Sixers right now, he's just going to resort back to who he was because it's not like there's room for him to continue that growth here right now as you're trying to win a title.
No, I mean, down the line, maybe he
right.
comes back 2 years.
But no, I'm saying more hypothetically. If you just literally brought him back today, is he going to do what he did the last 4 or 5 games? No, because he's not going to have that. The Sixers aren't going to have that luxury at this point. That's all I keep thinking and talking about. It's about a luxury of playing on a bad team gives you the opportunity to figure out if you got it or not. That's all.
Oh, 100%. But I agree. Like some of the fans, I see what you're saying. They're mad that we traded him, and
they think the fan base thinks if we would bring back Isaiah Joe, Matisse Thybulle right now, and kick off 2 guys on our team right now, all of a sudden we're going to be this better team. But we're not because this team is not going to worry about those guys. Isaiah Joe would be playing 2 minutes a game. Isaiah Joe might have less minutes than Furkan Korkmaz, who doesn't play ever. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to take minutes away from James Harden. You're not going to take minutes away from, Joel Embiid. These guys are going to be back-end guys. So that's the only thing. These fans think that because they do well in another city with no expectations, we would be better if they were on our team right now, when we wouldn't be. It would be the same thing.
I think the biggest difference of the Sixers this year and those previous years that I know there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, here we go again. It's the same old story. It's going to be a good regular season and they're going to fail. I do see a difference in this team than those other teams. And the difference to me that I see is James Harden this year compared to last year.
Agreed.
Just has a different mentality. You could see it every night that he brings it. There was games last year where I was saying, like, it looked like he didn't care. Like, he just kind of, checked out. Mm-hmm. I have not saw that this year. Maybe occasionally for, a 5-minute stretch. But I have not seen, a full game of where James Harden has just checked out. Mm-hmm. He's been more, and I'm not saying he's ever going to be the James Harden of old, but he's bringing his A game every game, and that's helped the Sixers, grow as a team. And I think, Tyrese Maxey, he's been resurgent lately. I've seen a lot more fire in him the last, X amount of games. And Joel is just playing Joel. Joel is I hope to God that this team wins a championship. He deserves it. The guy is just amazing.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up the conversation for the day there. Man, this was a very
fun.
Again, it's the 4th show in a row where my notes right out the window because I want to talk. I've tried to put on the agenda talking Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, literally 4 times this week, and every time something's happened or the conversation has dragged on and we've not gotten to it. These are the weeks when you need 2 hours.
Maybe
breaking news: Ranger Suarez injured. Breaking news: Chuck Fletcher. I just saw somebody tweet out a picture. Obviously, you've seen Goodfellas, right?
Yeah.
The scene when they walk Joe Pesci's, into the room thinking he's going to become a made man, and they shoot him in the back of the head.
Oh,
It's an image of the Flyers walking Chuck Fletcher into the room, and yeah, that's what happens. Lots of breaking news, lots of conversations. I appreciate everybody tuning in all week long. Again, please do me that favor if you're watching on replay. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on, DSM Media on all social media platforms. I greatly appreciate it. For Jason Voorhees, I am Phil Thybulle. We're going to wrap it up for the week there with, yes, the Flyers have fired Chuck Fletcher. Go. I mean, it's go Birds. It's ring the bell. What is it for the Flyers?
Shoot the puck.
Shoot the puck.
And Philadelphia has it.